Hello and welcome to Connect to Love here on PRN-FM, where each week is an unscripted exploration into the many facets of love, oneness, and the human spirit. I'm Lisa LeRose, and I'm joined by my incredible co-host, Michael J. Russ. I want to say hello, Michael. It's so delightful. We had such a great conversation last week with Carol. I know that I'm inspired, and I want to see how you're doing and what inspirations you took from that conversation last week.
Absolutely amazing today. I'm loving life. It finally warmed up a little bit, and we're on a track for that for the next week. We might be actually through this little chill, these chill bombs that we keep getting, and I'm loving that because I'm a sun worshiper. I like the warmth, too. I even like the humidity, believe it or not, being where I live. However, lovely conversation with Carol last week, and it, the alchemy that the teachers were referring to of happy, basically the way that the inner conversation that you have with yourself about your own self-talk, about being happy and being loving, and when you're not, when you're the opposite, when you're feeling opposite of happy or opposite of glad or joyful and excited, the way that you can, that when you talk to yourself, when you say, I love being happy, right? And just, to me, that just struck me. All through this week, I've been thinking about, when I've had a moment where something has irked me a little bit, and just simply say, I love being happy. It just shifts everything. It's like you could flip a switch, and whatever was bringing those low frequency feelings into my moment, it just kind of dissipated. Just dissipates right away when I say that. I love being happy. I love being happy, and that's it. It's a great thing to do consciously to make sure that to reset. I call it a reset, mental reset, away from being frustrated or worried about something to back to the state that I'm supposed to be in, the state that I was born in, happy, state of happy, excited, and just move on. It works, and I've loved using it. How about you? Mm-hmm.
I loved the show with Carol and the teachers last week. There were so many amazing insights around fear and healing and, of course, the law of attraction. I was fascinated by what they had to say about rethinking our relationship with fear, and I loved how they encouraged us to see it as a pathway to healing rather than as a hindrance. I am always interested in attracting more positivity in my life, and I gained so many new insights on how our perceptions shape our reality, particularly around snakes. So I will admit I have never been that fond of snakes. I never thought about how the animal kingdom responds to our thoughts and the labels that we give them. Mm-hmm. I've always believed that we're not the only sentient beings on our planet, that animals, plants, and even how the earth responds to our energies. So it got me thinking about a gentleman named Cleve Baxter. And in 1966, I know I've spoken about this before, he was a CIA polygraph expert, and he was in his office. He was bored, and for whatever reason, he decided to hook up the plant in his office to a lie detector. And as he was sitting there, he simply thought about burning one of the plant leaves, not actually doing it, just contemplating it in his mind. And the plant's electrical response spiked dramatically. It reacted to his thoughts before he could even take action. The graph went wild. And what was so interesting was that simple experiment sparked a whole new movement. In the 1970s, there was a trend where people started talking to their plants. Everybody thought it was just hippie stuff, but there was really something happening. And that curiosity led to incredible research, including the work being done at Davenport in Italy, where they've been studying plant communication for decades. They've actually created technology that translates the electrical signals from plants into music. And what they've discovered is that plants respond to human presence, to our emotions, to our intentions, and that they're not just passively sitting there. They're perceiving, they're responding, they're participating in the energetic field around them. And so this is what I find so interesting. If a plant, which doesn't have a brain that we know of, without a nervous system as we know of it, can respond to the energy of a thought, to the vibration of our emotions. What do you think our thoughts are doing to us?
Mm-hmm.
Our thoughts aren't invisible whispers in our heads. They're energy. They're vibrations. They're frequencies being broadcast into the field all around us.
Right.
And just like that plant responding to Cleve's intention, our entire being, our body, our emotions, our reality is responding to the thoughts that we think. When we think happy thoughts, such as the teachers recommended, we're literally transmitting happy into the energetic field. Our cells are responding, our heart rate changes, our biochemistry shifts. We're not just feeling happy, we're becoming a different vibration. And that vibration attracts, it shapes what's going to show up in our lives. It isn't just a metaphor, it is physics. Everything is vibration. We speak about it all the time. Everything is frequency, from the chair that I'm sitting in to the thoughts moving around in my mind right now. It's all energy vibrating at different rates.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're constantly thinking, I'm not enough, I don't deserve love, I'll never have what I want, we're not just thinking thoughts, we're broadcasting a frequency, just like a radio station. We're creating a resonant field around us that attracts particular experiences that match our vibration. Somewhere along the way, and I'm not sure how it happened, many of us internalized a thought, a belief, a vibration that we're not worthy, that we're not deserving, that love, joy, abundance, peace are for other people and not us. And just like that plant responding to Cleve's thoughts, our entire being has been responding to those beliefs. Not because it's true, but because we've been broadcasting that frequency, sometimes for years, sometimes for our entire lives. So that's why I thought it would be so much fun if we can explore where these beliefs come from, why they feel so real, and most importantly, how to shift them. I'm so excited, Michael, because I know you have thoughts on how we can change our frequency, how to start broadcasting a different vibration into the field.
Yeah, I agree. So beautifully said, by the way, and I love the example of plants being sentient beings, and I agree with you. I've heard about that. I didn't necessarily read it all the way through, but I heard about that study. And it's true that when you talk to plants, they do respond. People who have a loving environment, the plants thrive. People who have an environment that's stressful and frustrated, plants don't thrive as well. And it's interesting because I have orchids. The orchids is what I have. I've got about 9 orchids, and upstairs and downstairs, east face. And the beautiful thing about it is that I guess they do respond to the positive energy in the house, because there's one particular orchid that just keeps blooming and blooming and blooming. The others I have to replant. I'm telling you, it's like it was a gift from a friend 2 years ago, and I don't think there's been a month when it hasn't blossomed, hasn't had blooms on it. Phalaenopsis is absolutely beautiful, and the others have blossoms. Blossoms last for months, 3, 4 months, 5 months. And then when the last flower falls off, there's another tangent that comes out of the stem, and it creates one and then another, and I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. And when I think about the joy and the love and the excitement that exists in this environment that we have, and with our cat Snicky, or dog Cobalt, and my girlfriend and I, and how we cultivate that. We cultivate an environment of love and kindness and compassion and empathy. And with regard to whether we're worthy, we're thinking about that. I think I might have talked about this in the past, but I had read at a cursory cross of an article years ago that had said that this therapist was talking about how challenging it was for her patients to actually look in the mirror and say, I love you. Mm-hmm. And that's really where she started with the patient. She had a big mirror. She said, please go stand in front of the mirror and can you say, I love you? As they were looking back at themselves, right? Looking at themselves in the mirror. And she said a very high percentage of my patients couldn't do that. It just wasn't possible for them to do that. And I'm thinking to myself, what has to happen in someone's life for them to not be able to like themselves or even love themselves? Like is, I think most people can say, yeah, I like my life. I like what's going on. And then you ask them about themselves personally, and it's, they have a whole different demeanor that changes completely, right? And wait a minute, hold on a second. This is one of the most basic things in our society. I don't know if our society respects, our world respects self-love the way, and gives it the credit that it's really due, gives it the weight that it really deserves. I don't know if that's the case. And I had a friend of mine. I asked to do that same thing. I said, "Hey, do you love yourself?" He said, "No, I don't. I can't say that. I can't say I love you." And I'm going, "Whoa, what's going on here?" Here's where the root of the issue lies. Here's where the root of your life challenge is. You're looking outside of yourself. And that's what he was doing. You see that you're looking outside of yourself for validation all the time. You're looking to me to validate your ideas. You're looking to me to validate whether you're doing the right decision or not. So go inside. Go inside. I'm not going to validate your decision. What do you feel? How do you feel when you think about that decision or that choice that you're needing to make? Instead of going and getting this crowdsourcing, which has become a thing, evidently, and it is a thing, crowdsourcing. Whoa, I need to go out to people I don't know and see if what I'm thinking is correct. Wait a minute. The idea of that, to me, is just very strange. But that's the society that we live in this digital world where everybody is supposed to be connected to everybody, and you're basically sending your life out to people in tweets and posts out to people that you don't know, and you're asking them for their whether they like what you are thinking. And I'm like, that's really kind of strange to me. I didn't grow up in that world, and so it seems strange to me now. However, I do understand that this kind of digital world we live in, it breeds an unsurety. I don't know. I don't know if that's a word, unsurety. Is it? I don't know. So look that one up. But it really breeds this atmosphere of distrust for yourself, your own wisdom, your own inner guidance, your own intuition. Do you trust yourself? And I think you have to kind of go there and then move into self-love somehow. Just that's the next likely step. But do you trust what you're thinking? Do you trust the decisions that you're making? Do you feel worthy of being able to make decisions and choices for yourself? Or did somebody at some particular point tell you that you needed to crowdsource? Your parents, your mom or dad might have said, don't make a decision without calling me first, or don't decide to make a big choice in life without talking it over with us, or me. And it just breeds this atmosphere of I can't trust my own thinking. And if I can't trust my own thinking, how can I love myself? Right? How can I do that? How can I trust that the love I have for myself is valid, is reliable? It's like, whoa. We go off this whole chart of something that should be so simple and basic. I submit that when we're born, we love ourselves. We come from love, unconditional love, a form of unconditional love that we as human beings could never in our, in 100 lifetimes as humans, physical beings, fathom. Okay, it's just completely different. There is no judgment. There is no shame. There is no wondering about anything. You just think of it and it happens. And this is the world we come from. We have to forget all that, and we have to incarnate here as in physical forms as these beautiful spirits, attempting to be human, and we have to forget about the depth of love that we come from, to discover it rediscover it all over again. To me, it would be a whole lot simpler if we could remember the depths of love that we come from. But then again, it's the separation here in this earthly plane that creates the experiences that we actually have. We all have a mission. We all have we've got a list of things, the things we're supposed to accomplish during this lifetime and that maybe we haven't done in the past. And they're all related to feelings. It's not about in this life I'm supposed to be rich or I'm supposed to be, whatever. Your situation and circumstance that you're born into is not by some sort of happenstance. It's all a part of the play, the life play that you're supposed to live. Now, we have the ability, of course, we've talked about it before, to use free will to choose the right path, the left path, the upper path, the lower path, whatever it is that's presented to us. And that our perceptions of all of that are really the driving force of how we experience everything. Very, very, very simple, very plainly. We make choices, those choices have consequences. It's not the thing as much as how we feel about the thing or feel about the choice, whatever. If it works out the right way or the wrong way can often be the right way because there's a lesson in there that we've learned. All these little different levels of things. But bottom line, I started writing down some things when we started this conversation and I started the show, and I'm thinking to myself about myself. What do I think of when it comes to worthiness, self-love? And really, I would say something that really wasn't originally mine. I saw this decades ago when I met my now brother-in-law for the first time. He had this written down on a large piece of paper in his apartment. He said, I am a beautiful, passionate, loving, and giving man.
Oh, how nice.
Those were the words. And really it was the most wonderful affirmation, not something I expected to come from him at the time. And I got I discerned something completely different about him. When I read those words, I said, how beautiful. That is amazing. And about 30 years ago, I started saying it. I took it on as my own affirmation. And when someone asked me, who are you? I'm a beautiful, loving, and giving man. That's basically what I am. A beautiful, passionate, loving, and giving man. I've since added a couple of other things. When I'm a beautiful, loving, passionate, compassionate, empathetic, and beautiful man. Right? So you can take it and add whatever you want to it. It's your thing. However, that was one of the steps to me loving myself fully in taking that affirmation and kind of making it my own. And it's mine. I don't really go out and say that. I think I put it in my book, Zero Adversity, because it was kind of me spilling out what was going on in my life and at the time and how uncertain I was 40 years ago and how absolutely certain I am today of various things. I know absolutely with complete and total certainty that I love myself. Mm-hmm. I would shout it to the world off a rooftop or Mount Everest. It doesn't make any difference. It can echo for days. And I love feeling that way. I get a great feeling when I say, I look in the mirror and say, I love you, man. You're awesome. You're amazing. And it's not because of something I've done. It's because I have learned to be more aware and to give myself the love and attention and compassion and empathy that I know I deserve. And I give other people that same compassion and empathy because, we talk about it all the time, but the way we feel about ourselves creates a resonance, and that resonance goes out into your energy field 9 feet from your body, and it goes into the global consciousness, and it feeds the global consciousness, and it feeds that energy goes into every room you walk into, every place you visit. And it brings a smile to your face when you have this confidence in knowing that you love yourself, that you care about yourself. And I knew this back when I was a kid. And since I've made these choices all along the way where I fully respect myself. Not that this is a good or bad thing, but I've never smoked pot. I've never tried cocaine. I've never tried, heretofore drugs that are, not listed as legal. I've never experimented with them. I don't need to change my state of being. I've always loved my state of being, loved who I am. And I've never drank excessively habitually, right? Because I've known people, and by the way, I've been around all of these things. The taking of, to be a DJ, I used to do parties. Between you, me, and all our listeners, I did a party for a drug dealer one time. He was a very wealthy drug dealer. I'm serious. I did a private party for him.
I believe you. I'm not.
Yeah,
and
he was a cocaine dealer. Yeah, he was a cocaine dealer.
Well, I'm chuckling because it would be the last place that I would think that you would be. So.
And this is when I was in college. I was 20 years old doing a party for a big time drug dealer in San Jose, California. And he was a really nice guy. This guy was the top guy. He was, he wasn't selling the stuff. He never sold the stuff. He was the kingpin. And he had this house that was absolutely insane. Not to go off the rails, but he had a hot tub that fit 24 people. It was in this big circus canopy in his backyard, and he had this at the time a electrical panel, a panel right off in the hot tub where he could answer the door, talk to people. If he could have seen the video, but in those days in the 70s you couldn't do that. But today it would be somebody who he'd have a video conferencing right there from his hot tub. He could do everything from his hot tub. It was the most amazing thing. It's not that I admired him. I admired his creativity. However, I've been in these environments here in Hawaii, DJs, this and that, and I've never felt that I needed to do that. I had this self-confidence, this self-love, where I didn't need to do what other people did to be accepted. I'd never felt that. And I can tell you the repercussions of that are the people who engaged in that behavior of DJing till 4 a.m. on cocaine and Grand Marnier and smoking pot during the daytime to come down from that speed of cocaine, they looked at me and said, "Hey, you want a toke?" And I said, "No need." And I kept saying that and kept saying that and kept saying that. And they got very uncomfortable. They got very uncomfortable because I said no, because I didn't need it. I loved me, man. I loved where I was. I'm in Hawaii. I'm doing some really wonderful things. I'm working, but I enjoy my life, and I love where I am and what I'm doing and who I'm hanging out with. I don't need that. I don't want to change that. I don't want to change the way I feel. I feel great, and I've always had this inner sixth sense that said no to any of that. Even to this day, and I'm 6.7 decades later, but they got very uncomfortable, and that's when I first realized that changing your state, they didn't like what they were doing. They didn't like their state of being. It's something about their life and themselves they didn't like, and they couldn't handle someone else who did. Mm-hmm. Right? And they got angry. And I said, no need to get angry, my friend. No need to get angry. You're doing what you're doing. You keep doing it if that's what you want to do. Knock yourself out.
No,
I'll get beyond that too. I'll get beyond that too. It's not a big thing. But what I'm saying is that I had this inner sixth sense of loving a love for myself and understanding that was not part of that I didn't need that. It wasn't something that I needed. I've been drunk more than once, probably a dozen times in my life. However, I don't crave that. That was once I moved past that in college, I was done. And I didn't do it every weekend or anything like that. It was just a couple of times. So it's what I'm saying here is that when it comes to loving and respecting yourself and being compassionate to yourself and forgiving yourself, which is huge. We've talked about forgiveness a dozen times plus on this show, and the prayer of forgiveness of Ho'oponopono. We've talked about that and how important it is to, if you felt that you somehow are judging yourself, that you've made a choice that's led to things that you not feeling good about yourself, that you can easily forgive yourself for the choice that you made, and you can move on, right? And we can't keep dragging the past into the future, beating ourselves up, shaming ourselves, judging ourselves for something that happened when we were a different person, because we were always evolving. We're never the same, right? So
Absolutely.
that's my little story. I'm sorry to go off on a little tangent there, but that's self-love to me. Self-love is respecting yourself. You are perfect.
Right.
I am perfect now.
I agree. There's a lot of what you're saying, and it's people there's a saying called putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. That when you do not feel confident in who you are, sometimes that's the easiest way to do it. You will use alcohol or drugs or shopping, whatever it is. I mean, lots of people have all different kinds of things that sort of make you feel better temporarily, but it doesn't really do the trick. And Louise Hay, who wrote a wonderful book, she was the founder of Hay House Publishing, and her book was You Can Heal Your Life. And what she found was, through her own experience, she got ovarian cancer later on in life, and she looked at the emotional components to healing. And a lot of what arose was different aspects, and she started working first with individuals that had AIDS, and then it went on to other things. And when people started to be able to recognize who they were and see their own value, they were able to heal their disease states. Her book was one of the only books that was on the bestseller list twice, first when it came out and then many years later when it was re-released. But she did mirror work of the soul, and she said that it was one of the most difficult and most transformative things that we can ever do, is to look into our own eyes and say, I love and approve of myself. And as you said, it's not easy. When we look into our own eyes and say those words, I love and approve of myself, many people cry. And some feel resistance, and some feel nothing at all. They feel numb. They don't know what to feel. The reaction, I think, that when you say those words, I love and approve of myself, gives you a clue. It's sort of like those breadcrumbs that shows you where healing is needed. Mirror work, one of the beautiful things about it is it helps to rewire the subconscious. It's like feeding things, and the more you say it, even you have a much longer phrase, but even just to say, I love myself, and then add, I love and approve myself the next day, that can be a start. And it helps to restore safety, a feeling of safety inside your own inner being, because oftentimes unworthy is simply that absence of self-approval. And so when we stand in front of the mirror and just look into our eyes, oftentimes we want to turn away. And why is that? I mean, you have to ask yourself those questions. But if you do it for 30 days, watch what changes. It can be extremely powerful to do that. When I had my health practice, that was one of the things that I had my clients do every day. I see a strong, healthy, vibrant, young man or woman in the mirror. And a lot of times that was not easy for a lot of people to say. They would try to argue with me. Well, I have cancer. I said, well, just keep seeing yourself well. Find a picture of yourself when you felt your best and put it on your refrigerator so you have to walk by it every day. And when you see that picture, see yourself there. See yourself embracing that perfection of who you are, because you truly are. In my opinion, in God's eyes, we are all perfect. There is no imperfection, and it is that I am. And you had spoken about that, the I, in the I am. I am, when we say things, as we know, as I am, we are attracting that experience to match what we're saying. And so if we want to change the experience, we have to change the I am, quite simply. Very, very simply. So I am beautiful. I am smart. I am intelligent. I am enough. I am loved. I am safe. I'm joyful. I am happy, 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 happy. The wisdom of the teachers. Really great wisdom. That being happy. I mean, it's so simple. But it is. To me, it's like food for the soul. Food for the soul. And even if you can't say it, find the words that you can say. I do a lot of thought field therapy with clients. And when it comes to, there's a part where you just hold your hand on your heart. And you say, I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself for all my gifts and blessings. And I can't tell you how many people have said, I can't say that. I can't say those words. I can't say that I love myself. And then they start to cry. So we find a place that we can start. And by the end of the session, things have shifted. And there's usually a big smile and maybe some tears, usually a box of Kleenex nearby. But it's okay because it's part of allowing yourself to heal, just like Louise Hay did in You Can Heal Your Life. And ultimately, when a friend of hers said, well, you need to practice what you have put out there. And she started doing the affirmations for herself, and she healed her cancer. And it's just that easy. It can be just that easy.
Wonderful. I love that. And that is so true. We have a tendency to focus on the I need something to get rid of this, right? Not understanding that there's two things going on. One is the thought process that you've had that has led to your dis-ease, and then there's the other side where now you've got it and you are experiencing the symptoms of this thing. You've been told one thing or another, and you have to deal with the thought viruses that are associated with it that our society characterizes when you sees cancer as a death sentence, and this is that, and this is that. These thought viruses are very prevalent, and it's so beautiful when you can get together with somebody like that and have them see themselves in a different light. When they can see themselves in a loving manner and break through the thought processes, the inner conversations that have led to where they are. And I see it as sort of like the thought processes as a sort of like a blockage in the energy that they've created over time. And we're looking to free that energy up so that the body can heal. Get rid of the obstruction, so to speak, mental obstruction, and loving yourself and understanding that there's a whole, I've always said this with regard to self-talk and inner conversations, that we become our own worst enemy because we say things. We're not taught how to talk about ourselves. That's really the conclusion that I've come to, that there's no mechanism for teaching you as a kid how to refer to yourself.
That's so true.
And so what do we do? We go out and we adopt everybody else's, like society and other people we know and respect. We adopt their way of thinking about ourselves based on what we see. And it's, if we could at an early age begin with the process of this is the way we speak of ourselves. We speak of ourselves as worthy. We speak of ourselves from love, in love. Fall in love with yourself. Fall in love with yourself. Before you do anything else, fall in love with yourself. Treat yourself like you're the only person on the planet, right? And if you don't take care of you, there won't be anybody else. So you need to take care of you. You need to speak wholly of yourself. You need to speak lovingly of yourself. And this is something that unfortunately doesn't occur. It's interesting because I get the sense that we live in a society that doesn't want people to love themselves. Because if you love yourself and you care about yourself and you respect yourself, you won't need 95% of the stuff that's out there for sale. I mean, literally. I mean, I I have a penchant for shoes, but not because of the fact that I need to keep buying shoes. I have enough shoes. I recognize it. I've had enough shoes for a while. I may pick up one here, one there, but I don't use buying shoes to fill a void of not caring about myself, not loving myself, and then go buy shoes to as a catalyst for other people loving me, and then thereby I can love myself for a few minutes because I've got this item, right? And it's a vicious thing. When I wear a pair of shoes, I'm wearing them out of love for myself. When I wear my bright orange loafers, drivers, it's not because I'm trying to be something that I'm not. It's my favorite color.
Right,
they're bright orange. You know?
They make you happy.
Yes, they make me happy.
But Michael, I'd like to just say something while you're saying this, because, and when somebody says to you, Michael, I really like your shoes, you accept a compliment graciously because you do like yourself. And I think I've seen it in sitcoms and movies. I have a hard time watching a movie where people are insulting each other. It hurts my heart, and I choose not to watch that type of material. I know a lot of people enjoy that. I don't find it nurturing to me, and it's fine if other people do. But I think somebody sees your shoes and they say, "Oh, Michael, you really look nice today. I like your shoes," and you don't minimize it by saying, "Oh, well, no, I just threw this together. I'm not really, I looked better yesterday."
Yeah,
right?
I know what you mean.
I looked better
exactly.
yesterday. You know individuals who do that. It's very hard for them when you say to somebody, "Boy, that color just lights you up. You look really great in that color. It's a really good color for you. You look really beautiful." To be able to say thank you, it's a learned thing, and that may go back to childhood too. So I just wanted to interject that because I think it's very much related to what you're speaking about.
I think it's absolutely related to it. Being able to take, and listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't always able to do that very same thing. About 30, 40, 50 years ago, somebody would give me a compliment, and I'd say thank you, and maybe just, I had this really queasy feeling in me about somebody doing something nice for me or saying something nice about me. Now, and this is just the process over the last 40, 50 years that I have said, you know what, I am worthy. It doesn't matter what you do. Our society places a lot of value on what you do for a living. And whether you went to school or not, whether you graduated from college or not, whether you achieved this milestone or achieved that milestone, it's a problem. And it's a problem that has a solution. And that solution is respect everyone. Give everybody the same love that you would give to people who you believe have achieved whatever it is. But this is what our society does. It creates this hierarchy, this class system mentally, right? You may not see it, but I mean, what do you do for a living? It's the first thing people ask you. What do you do when you go to a function and you meet people? They all want to know, what do you do? Why do they want to know? Because somehow they've been taught to judge you based on what you do for a living, right? So if you walk in and you say, I'm a sanitation engineer. Really? That is so cool, right? Yet what I've just told you is that in the old vernacular, I'm a garbage man, right? But if I say I'm a garbage man, you won't think highly of me. It's likely that you would form an opinion of me from that particular point that would pretty much, derail everything else I said. And this is the way it is in our society. The fact is, I could have a PhD and still be a sanitation engineer because I love what I'm doing. I like driving a truck, right? I love having a Class 2 license. And I've always had this affinity for big vehicles. So there's all kinds of things going on. But, I mean, this is what we do in our society. We have a tendency to judge. And then we judge ourselves most harshly. Because if we start believing what somebody says or thinks that we're not worthy because we're a sanitation engineer over somebody who's a banker or a stockbroker or a billionaire or whatever, then we are diminishing ourselves. When we have the same light as anyone else. Mm-hmm. And we can make that light brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter based on how we feel about ourselves, not the world outside of us, about ourselves. Right. And, yeah, I like to tell children, it's about building your own light. Mm-hmm. It's about building your own light.
Yep. And you're spot on, because I think many people think that their imperfections block that light. And in reality, when we're grateful for our imperfections, it allows the generous universe to flow into those cracks. It's kind of like that. And I can never remember how to pronounce it, like kintsugi, which is that Japanese art of fixing broken pottery with gold instead of using super glue. And those cracks become so beautiful. And it's sort of like our cracks, where we let that abundance shine through most brightly. And that's what Sarah Landon said when in one of her books. She said, we're here to shine. We're not here to shrink. After that last conversation with Carol, and it's so interesting because I was thinking back to some of my childhood traumas, right? I didn't have huge childhood traumas. One of my biggest traumas was when I have a chair in my kitchen, and it's so interesting. My grandmother was a hairdresser, and she had this little chair. It was a step chair, and when I would go visit, I would have to sit in that chair, and she would cut my hair. My mother and father wanted my hair short, and so when I was in school, because I was tall, I was always in the back and dressed like a boy. Everybody thought that I was a boy, and so it wasn't until and I used to sit in that chair and cry and say, please, Grammy, don't cut my hair. Please don't cut my hair. And I'd get my hair cut. Oh, get over it. You can't have messy hair. And so inevitably my grandfather finally said, let her grow her hair. I'll braid her hair. So after a certain age, I was allowed to have long hair. And I've never had short. Maybe one time I had shoulder-length hair, but it's so interesting because I look back at some of my childhood pictures and I laugh about my hair now because my hair just does what it wants to do. I'm a wash and go girl. I get out of the shower. My hair, it's better to just let it go whatever way it wants. When I was in high school, I used to try to tame it down and put it in hot rollers, and inevitably I'd leave the house and it would just do what it wanted anyway. But I thought about that after that episode, and I thought it's so interesting because I still, if anything, that was always like a sensitive thing. And for women, if your hair doesn't look right, you don't want to go out of the house. But I got to the point where I just sort of surrendered to allowing my hair to do whatever it wants and just be who I was. And I will never, probably in this lifetime, maybe another lifetime, be one of those women that are put together with their nails and their hair done to a T, because it's just not my nature. And when I just allowed that imperfection to just be, I was so free. And that's like I just get out of the shower, I let my hair go. Yep. Go ahead.
Hold on a second. You said let your imperfection, but you're not imperfect.
No, you're correct.
We were talking about this earlier. You are perfect. You are perfect as you are in this moment. You can expand on that perfection in the next moment. However, this is our major one of the major challenges that we have outside of it, and it's part of our inner conversation. We judge ourselves as perfect or imperfect. And I know, and listen, you and I we're the students of our own conversation. We're the students. We're students, just like everybody else is listening.
So I'd like to correct that language and affirm that I'm renewing my awareness in my perfection. Not perfection as in flawless, but perfection as in whole, as in complete. Because it isn't about being flawless. It's about realizing that I'm born of Source, and Source cannot be less than. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
That's very powerful.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That makes me happy for that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an example of how we inadvertently have been, conditioned to say things, and this is to believe certain things, and that this is a standard that. And I'm saying who set the standard? They did. Who's they? That's why I always ask that question all the time. Right. Who's they? Like societies is a group of people that sit down and I mean there are a small group of people, less than a dozen people, that sit down every year and decide what colors are going to be the colors for next year in the world of fashion, right? And I'm going, who cares? It's not that important a job, right? I mean, it's like I have my favorite colors, and colors have also a vibration. They have resonance, and they make you feel a certain way, and they can make you feel one way or another because they vibrate at a certain frequency, right? I love blue, I love cobalt blue, and I love orange. I love bright orange. It's really beautiful, and I love, putting something on my body that is a accoutrement, so to speak, where it complements whatever else I'm wearing. If I'm wearing blacks or blues, let's throw a dash of bright color into that, right? Because I'm only wearing the black or navy not because it's winter, because I wear them in the summer too, but because of the fact that I might be going somewhere where I might, tend to get dirty or something. If I'm going to eat spaghetti, I'd rather have it be on a black pair of slacks than a white pair of slacks. That's my thinking about wearing colors. It's not because this is in and that's out of fashion and you can't wear white after September, and come on. Somebody figures they want you to be a certain way, and what that makes you feel is lack, that you don't feel worthy. You lack the worthiness to be able to do that. And it doesn't make much sense to me, and never has. However, I always ask who they is when somebody says, "Yeah, they who? Who's that?" Do you know them? It doesn't matter. They're external from you. Everything emanates from you. And I like to say that and I said this before, that I see us all as balls of bright light wearing suits of clothes. You've chosen an outfit. If this is your life play, this is the outfit that you've chosen for your play. And you can choose differently. You can choose anything you want. Right? If you're not liking the way you look when you look in the mirror, you can simply do what Louise Hay was talking about, which I thought was so brilliant, by the way, for bringing that up. Thank you. She was an amazing. You can heal your life in not only medically, but mentally. You can heal yourself, and when you heal yourself of negative thoughts, what happens? Because I know Louise wrote another book about self-talk, and when you speak more positively of yourself, and you refuse to speak negatively of yourself from here on out, there's a feeling that you get. It builds on your worthiness. And I found that out 40 years ago when I discovered that I was saying some things about myself that were impeding my progress, my ability to feel successful. And that was probably the most brilliant aha moment that I've ever had, because I vowed at that particular point never to say anything negative about myself ever again, and I still do that to this day. It's ingrained in me to speak positively of myself, whether I'm alone by myself or whether I'm with people, because it really doesn't matter. If you're alone, speaking negatively about yourself has the same effect as if you're with a group of people. It doesn't make any difference. Whether if you feel yourself worthy when you're by yourself in the darkest room, you're certainly going to feel worthy of yourself with a lot of, with an audience around, or at a party, or wherever it is that you've gone. And
This is a great conversation because it's brought up some things that, for me, that I haven't thought about in a while. When I was writing my self-talk books, I know I gave it a lot of thought. However, we're light, and our goal, and I love that, what you say was that we're here to identify, to recognize that we are light, and to build upon it, and to share that with others. And we share it with others by making sure that we're shining brightly ourselves. That's it. Mm-hmm. Nothing. It's not rocket science. It's just the way it is. And everything else externally is really by they. I don't know who. They've created this whole system of levels. And, I've said it before, my brother's an actor, and I've met a lot of actors, like tons of actors who've, been on TV and movies and whatever. And I don't treat them any differently. I don't put them on a pedestal. They're just people, just like me. They're balls of light, and they've chosen something that has given them, that has made them more recognizable than other people. And when I go out with my brother, I see it. I know who he is. He's not, attempting to be something he's not. However, people do recognize him, and he just likes to lead a normal life and loves what he does, and loves it when he does it well. However, I see the looks on other people's faces. I see the looks. I see the way they have this little groveling act that they start doing. And really, when I'm sitting at a table with a bunch of actors from a TV show, we're all just people.
Absolutely.
Laughing and having and eating together, and I've done it so many times. It's not about the publicist. When you get to a certain level, you get a publicist, and that publicist is supposed to put you out there and make your face more known, so that you can have more face time wherever, and you get better jobs and better pay. That's really what it's all about. But if you start believing that madness, if you start believing that you're better than other people, then it changes you. When you think other people are less worthy than you are. And that is a kind of business where that can occur very, very easily. It can happen in the music business as well. There are many businesses where that happens, and many professions. And we have to constantly rein ourselves in and think, no. I love myself. I'm a beautiful, passionate, loving, giving person. I'm very compassionate. I'm very forgiving. And I'm all these things to myself first. To myself first. And then my light is shining bright enough that it doesn't really matter where I am. I'm bringing my light with me, and it's shining bright. And if someone isn't feeling well, someone is crying, someone is having a difficult moment in their life, a challenging moment, I should say. I don't like to use the word difficult, but a challenging moment in their life with something, what I usually do is just say, do you need a hug?
Yeah.
Do you need a hug? Yeah. And you bring your humanity to the situation. The fact that you are human, they're human, and that we all deserve to be worthy regardless of what's happening in our lives. Whether you're getting a divorce or you're breaking up with your partner or you've just lost your job or whatever it may be. It's not the end of the world. It's a challenge like any other challenge, and you'll move through it. However, loving yourself and feeling you're worthy is the first step to move through it. Because otherwise, what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the party? You're bringing in unworthiness, and that it's like wearing a sandwich board that says, I'm not worthy. Well, right across your forehead, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of this new job. I'm not, because I've lost my other one for some reason. I don't know why. Or maybe I do know why and I don't want to accept it. Point is, we create this light, and when our light, and I fully believe that our light is dimmed by our own negativity towards ourselves and towards others. When we judge ourselves, we judge others, we judge everything in the outer world, our own light is diminished from that. So, best thing to do, don't do it. Just love everybody. Let everybody be who they are, what they've chosen to be at that particular point in time, because it may change tomorrow.
Right.
That
Absolutely.
That is life, right?
Right. Yeah, and I love the fact that you reach out with a hug. I mean, it's so powerful, Michael, because it's that connection, and it allows, sometimes when people are in a situation or in a challenge like that, they can't hear. They can't hear with their ears, but they can feel with their heart. And I think when you do that, you're saying to somebody on a heart level, you have a beautiful heart that feels deeply, and I see you. You're one of a kind. There'll never be another you. And I think that's an important discernment for everybody to remember. You are unique in all the world, which I love. One of my favorite lines from The Little Prince by Antoine Saint-Exupéry. You're unique in all the world. And I think if everybody can just embrace that you're not a project to be solved, you're a miracle to be realized. You are perfect in your imperfection, and you are not unworthy. And if that script starts to play, then you just need to interrupt it with a single powerful spark and just say, I wonder what's possible if I actually believed I was enough. And then just sit with that question and soften your resistance. Let it open the door, and remember who you are. You are a divine being of love. And as you said, Michael, you are light. You are loved. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And I'm so grateful for this conversation with you because it's brought so much love and joy to my heart and happy to my heart. Thank you.
Love it. Yeah. Thank you. So I appreciate your and we kind of talk about, our audience doesn't know this, but these are all unscripted, and we kind of talk about them a couple of times before we have, during the week before we have the show, so it can kind of percolate in our minds. However, it comes out as it comes out from the heart, and I hope that our listeners here on PRN FM and those that listen to the recording as our podcast at Connect to Love really get it. They really are understanding that this show is about connecting with love, and that we both are, as I said earlier, students of our own conversation. We are speaking from the heart because we live this on a daily basis, and we see it in others. We experience it when we go out. And my biggest challenge at this particular point is I'm asking myself that particular question: what would happen when it's formulated in a different way? Instead of loving yourself, what would happen? Everybody starts speaking positively about themselves and their life. What would happen? Mm-hmm. How different would they feel if they no longer carried on a conversation a conversation that was them impeding their own progress, diminishing their own light, when their light has the potential to shine brighter than any light in the universe. Really. You'd need those glasses you have to look at the sun with when there's an eclipse in order to see them. I mean, we all have that capability. And if this conversation, I want to say this, if the conversation, wherever you're listening in the world, has touched you in some way, certainly go to our YouTube channel, and that is it at Connect to Love as well?
Mm-hmm. Connect to Love.
There you go. Connect and the number 2.
Connect to Love. And the number 2, Love, yep.
Yeah, number 2, Connect to Love on our YouTube channel. And you can leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to know if anything that we're saying is touching you, and if you have something specific you want to share, please share it. Because we are full. We've got more shows in the future that we'll probably never stop doing this, because I'm learning so much from it, and I know you are too.
And goodness, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. But that's all I'm going to say. If anywhere in the world this is touching you and helping you evolve and transform as a loving being of light, let us know. Let us know on our YouTube channel. I would love to hear from you. So many of you out there, we appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful time. I think all of us are remembering who we are and reconnecting with our hearts. And when you have any opportunity, always choose love. One thought, one moment, one reflection at a time, because that's why we're here. And that's why I'm so grateful to you, Michael, and to each and every one of you that tune in. It's a blessing. And
the joy.
Next time. Enjoy.
Thank
Be in love. Yeah, peace out. Thank you.
Peace out.